Good morning, everyone. Morning. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Vikas Raj, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the South Asian Impact Foundation, which is the 501c3 arm of Indian American Impact. It's an honor to be in this room with all of you. I am genuinely thrilled you are here at this special summit, which marks the 10 years of Indian American Impact, working to ensure there is Indian American political, give it up, 10 years. Just looking at myself back there. 10 years of working to ensure there is Indian American political representation throughout this country. We have an incredible 2 days ahead of us, meaningful conversations, practical training, productive meetings on the Hill with the people who represent us. So thank you for making the trip, for clearing your schedules, and for showing up. Many of you were here with us back in September at the last summit. Put your hands up if you were here in September. Okay, a lot of you. That's the last time we were all together. And for those of you that were here, you probably remember what that event felt like. The country was in a difficult place then. Honestly, it's hard to say it's much better today. But something happened in that September summit that surprised me. We all walked in carrying this weight of everything going on, right? The anti-immigrant rhetoric, the hate incidents, the deportations, the visa revocations. And somehow by the end of those 2 days, that weight felt different. I know it did for me. The weight wasn't gone, it felt shared. And there was an energy in that room in September that I personally haven't quite stopped thinking about since that last summit. Now, not that much time has passed since September. I won't stand up here and tell you the world has been transformed, but I will tell you this, something is shifting for Indian Americans in this country. You can see it in this room. In November, Zoran Mamdani, a South Asian, a child of immigrants, became the first Desi mayor of New York City. Ghazala Hashmi, born in Hyderabad, a speaker at our event in September and a speaker again today, became the first South Asian woman ever elected to statewide office in Virginia. Yeah. And right now, today, Desi candidates are running up and down the ballot across the country. These are our people, stepping forward, stepping up, and choosing not to wait for permission. In fact, this year, this is crazy, this year in 2026, there are over 30 Indian Americans running for the U.S. House. Over 30. There's 10 Indian Americans running for statewide office all around the country. So, permit me, I would like to invite every person in this room that's running for office to stand up. These are the people I really want to applaud today. Please stand if you're running for office this year. Please, stand. What these people are doing, what the people that are running for office are doing at its core is actually very important. They are saying, we are here. We have something to contribute, and we belong. That's it. We belong. And it turns out, right now, in this political moment, that simple act, that simple statement is also a radical one. We belong is our theme this year. And at a time when our community is being told through policy, through rhetoric, through the daily drumbeat of the administration, that our place here is conditional, that we are guests who can be shown the door at any time, we are choosing to say something different. We are not guests. Our ancestors, our parents, helped build this country. We are raising our kids here. We are running for office here. We belong here. And that's why Indian American Impact exists. Not to ask for a seat, but to help build the table. To show up in numbers large enough that no one can look away. to make sure that the next generation of Desi kids, like my own, can grow up with people who look like them, leading cities, writing policy, and working in the halls of Congress. That momentum started 10 years ago when we first launched Indian American Impact. And it continued at that event in September that so many of you were at, and it's going to continue over the next couple days. Let's make the most of it, and welcome again to the We Belong Summit. Thank you. So to start us off, it's my honor to welcome Pooja Mehta and Dr. Vivek Murthy for a conversation on community and connection and how we keep on caring for each other. You all know who Dr. Vivek Murthy is. He served as the 19th and 21st Surgeon General of the United States, where he helped lead the nation through some of its most pressing public health challenges. He's been a leading voice on loneliness, on mental health, and the importance of human connection. And he's the author of the New York Times bestselling book, Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World. And he'll be joined by Pooja Mehta, founder of Tarang, and a leading advocate for API mental health. As a suicide loss survivor with direct lived experience, Pooja brings both personal and professional insight to her work, helping shift how we understand and talk about mental health in our communities. Please join me in welcoming Vivek and Pooja.
Hello? Hi, hello everyone, good morning. Oh, come on, I know it's early. Good morning. There it is, that's the energy I want. Welcome everybody to our opening session for today. This is not what we had originally planned. It is so much better because we are joined today by Dr. Vivek Murthy. And Dr. Murthy, I am so excited to be talking to you today. Yes, do the round of applause, sorry. Thank you so much for joining us today, for taking the time to be here. We know just all the amazing things that you're doing and all the incredible places that you're being called to, and it is such an honor to get to spend some time with you today. So let's dive right in. Let's dive right into the conversation. So you have talked a lot in your career about, what it was like growing up as a child of Indian parents and the pressure to kind of succeed quietly and not make waves. Simultaneously, you have grown into a leader in public health, which is a notoriously disruptive field, and have championed, really revolutionary ways of thinking about how we care for each other and what healthcare looks like in general. How did you unlearn those lessons that so many of us are familiar with to kind of stick to the status quo and not be disruptive?
Well, thanks for that question, Pooja. And just thanks to the Impact team for having me here today. It's just wonderful to be with all of you. I was telling Pooja and some of the other organizers earlier this morning that one of the things I really miss is events like this, being with our Desi community. And so the chance to be here with all of you today is really personally very meaningful to me. I wanted to think, I was thinking about the question that you were just asking in terms of growing up and what sort of influences shaped my current path. And I'll just tell you from the outset that no, I didn't have some 5-10-year plan. I set some of those early on in my life and realized I was awful at sticking to them and navigating them. So I cast them aside from, pretty early on. But one of the things I realized that's hard in life is to create a life that you can't see in front of you, where you don't have lots of role models, right? Like when I was growing up, there's no role model for being in public office.
You didn't have a template to follow.
We wouldn't, what's right?
You didn't have a template. You didn't have like a step 1, step 2,
no,
step 3.
There was no template. And my parents also, who are incredible human beings and continue to be, they saw politics and the world of policy making as something that was a negative, not a positive, not unlike many of their friends. In fact, I remember once in 9th grade, I really liked world history. And it was in my world history class, and the teacher, Miss Bryce, called me up at the end. And she said, you know, Vivek, I know that you really like this stuff. You really like world history. I said, yeah, I really do. She said, one day you should think about being Secretary of State. Okay, this was in 9th grade. And I was really excited. I was like, wow, Miss Bryce thinks I could be Secretary of State one day. So I came home and I told my mother. My mother became deeply concerned. And she called my father at the office and she said, you need to come home. He's thinking about going into politics. But that was their perception of what being in government was, that it was not, it may have been an honorable cause, but that the effect on people was less than honorable. Yeah. That you would come with the right values, but maybe find that those values were corrupted or diminished over time. But the thing I realized, though, growing up, is that even though my parents may not have known what some of these paths were, even they may have looked at them with suspicion, what they had, which was really the most important thing, is they had the right core values that I realized over time I was starting to absorb, and that you can apply those core values to many fields, including fields that they maybe weren't familiar with. So like, what were those values? When I look at them now with so much more clarity than I had 30 years ago or 40 years ago, my parents very much from the get-go demonstrated the value of family. They took care of each other. They took care of us. They impressed upon us that our job, regardless of how easy or hard it was to make sure that the family was cared for. And they would always tell, my sister and I were very close in age, and we're 12 months and 2 weeks apart, and we like fought all the time. But we were also very close. And so my mother would pull us aside and say, listen, after me and your dad are gone, you're the only ones who are going to be there for each other. You have to take care of each other. You have to look after each other. And now today, years after the fact, every morning, my 8 and 9-year-old, when they get up, we tell them, you have to take care of each other. You have to be there for each other. And so they give each other best friend hugs in the morning, when they get up. But it's that value continuing down. The other value my parents really shared was that of community, and how community was deeply important. And it was more than just a theoretical thing. It was more than just identity. It was an active value that they practiced. And here's what it looked like. It looked like showing up to somebody's house when they lost their mother or their father to make sure that they weren't grieving alone. It looked like showing up with food when somebody lost their job or when they had fallen ill. It looked like calling and visiting when someone's child was ill, because you knew when that happened that nothing else mattered to them, that it shook their whole world, and that it's easy to feel alone in those moments. And a lot of times that wasn't convenient to do. I remember a lot of times being at dinner and my parents were on the phone because something had just happened, an emergency, and they reached out to call the uncle or auntie in our community who was affected, and we'd be like, oh, where are they? They're on the phone again. But I now realize, and there was a lot more than that. They would take us places on the weekends, or we thought we were going to hang out. We had to go to somebody's house because something had happened, right? I remember at 2 a.m. when I was 7 years old, being woken up by my mother and father and hustled into the car along with my sister. And we were bleary-eyed just trying to wake up, and they explained to us that we were driving to a trailer park in Miami. And the reason we were doing that is because my father and mother had a medical practice in Miami that they ran, and one of their patients, Gordon, had just died after a long struggle with metastatic cancer. And his wife, Ruth, was left behind, and they were worried she would be grieving alone. So that's why they were driving at 2 a.m. to that trailer park. They weren't doing that because it was part of their responsibility on paper. They weren't doing that because they were somehow going to get, billed for that, get reimbursed. There was none of that. They were doing that because they had this fundamental understanding that our responsibility is to take care of each other. Gordon was their patient. His family was their family. And so for as long as I will live, I will always remember this image that night of my mother in her traditional Indian sari walking up the steps of Ruth's trailer, knocking on the door opening, and Ruth coming out with tears streaming down her face, and the two of them embracing as a light from the moon shone upon them. They could not have come from more different backgrounds. But in that moment, they were family. They were deeply connected to each other. And the thing my parents taught me in that moment is that yes, there are lots of differences between us in life experience and identity and how we look and what we believe. But there's a certain core element that makes us human. Our desire and need to love and be loved, our desire and need for belonging, for community, and our capacity to demonstrate the empathy and compassion that is like lifeblood to all of us. So I think as much as the path that I saw growing up was quite different from the path that I walk now, the core values were the same, and I find, in fact, more important than ever.
I really love, I might get a little emotional, I'm so sorry. I really love what you said about community as an investment, right? Community as a practice, community as, something that you have to show up for every single day. In my bio, you might have caught that I am a suicide loss survivor. I lost my brother Raj 6 years ago, and his 26th birthday was last week. And I am here today because of my community, some of whom is in this room, Abhi, Shruti, Sarah, the people who chose community as a practice, who chose to show up when it wasn't easy, who chose to show up when it was not fun, right? Who chose to be there the way that your mom was there. And when you were sharing that story with the tear, I felt that, my family was that. And our community is what helped us. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to grieve a child. Community is something that you have pioneered as a public health practice. It is something that, as Surgeon General, you put out the advisory on loneliness and how community and connection is something that we are really struggling to find as a society. And simultaneously, as Surgeon General, you talked about, the concerns around social media, especially as it relates to youth, and really championed work on youth mental health and youth well-being. Personally, it feels like community is something that it is becoming harder and harder to access these days, right? It's becoming increasingly easier to turn to digital spaces. It's becoming increasingly easier to ask a question to Claude or ChatGPT versus talking to your friend or talking to your neighbor. With all of that context, what does the future of community, the future of connection look like to you? And how do we get there?
So it's so interesting. 10 years ago, I don't think we would have had this conversation. We wouldn't have seen issues like community as a public health issue. We wouldn't have seen social connection as something that was as vital as food and water. Yeah. But what it turns out that it's something I came to learn in the course of being in office through primarily the stories of people who inspired me to then go look into the science behind connection. But I learned, in fact, that our ability and need to connect with one another, to enjoy deep, meaningful relationships with each other is actually as vital to our survival as food and water. When we don't have it, we are actually at increased risk for premature death, for physical illness like heart disease and dementia, for mental illness like depression and anxiety. And we might sometimes think, yeah, maybe it impacts health, but it can't be as important as the other pieces of health. Well, I'll tell you that, how many people in this room recognize that smoking is a hazard to your health? Okay, almost everyone. If you didn't raise your hand, come see me afterward. We can talk about that. But one of the things that we have learned, actually, now from the research over years, is that the mortality impact of social disconnection, of being lonely and isolated, is on par with smoking daily. It's on par with obesity, right? Which we think of as classic public health issues. And so in the same way that if I deprived you of food, for example, it may show up in different organ systems, right? You might find that your kidneys start shutting down over time. Your heart becomes impacted over time. It becomes harder and harder to breathe. Your skin may get impacted as well as you develop nutritional deficiencies. Now, we could look at this from one end and say, oh, you need a dermatologist, a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, a nephrologist, let's get all these people working on the problem. Or we could also say, wait, is there a deeper root cause that's manifesting in all these different ways? Well, I would posit to you that actually the same thing is happening with social connection. The dramatically high levels of loneliness and isolation that we're seeing in the US and increasingly in other countries around the world is manifesting not only as physical and mental health concerns, but it's actually impacting productivity in the workplace, where loneliness diminishes engagement, creativity, and retention. It's showing up in schools, where we know now from CDC data that loneliness negatively impacts academic performance in school. It's showing up in increased rates of polarization and division.
Yeah.
The easiest way to weaken a country is to actually incite division and isolation in that country, to incite people to turn against each other, right? And that's a lot easier to do when people are already lonely to begin with.
Absolutely.
And so all of these things that we keep reading about in the papers, the challenges in school, in the workplace, the polarization, the mental and physical health challenges, you can trace a lot of them back to the growing loneliness and isolation people face.
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear, that's not the only reason we see this, right? We know that our food supply impacts our health. We know that there are other environmental factors that impact our health and well-being. But this is one of the common root causes that we have to address. And so I think one of the things that's encouraging to me is I see as I travel around the country, more and more people around our country and around the world who are recognizing how important this is, who are building efforts, whether it's nonprofit efforts or new startups, to try to figure out how we can strengthen social connection, like in our country. And I'm lastly mentioned this is a global issue. You know, one of the groups that I help lead is I co-chair the WHO Commission on Social Connection. And that commission exists because, some years ago, Tedros, who's the WHO Director General, he and I had met a few years ago when I was in office to talk about this issue. And he realized that this was impacting other countries as well. So we sort of collectively built this commission, which has helped us see that the issue of loneliness is impacting countries across the world, like countries that are, we think of as hyper-industrialized, countries that are emerging, but the common feature is they have modernizing cultures and economies, right? Because many of you mentioned digital spaces as well. The technology that was meant to build a community, social media in particular, has now too often evolved in a way where it's replacing in-person connection with lower quality online connections, where it's creating a hyper-performative environment where we can't actually be ourselves, or we're trying to be somebody, some image, some model, if you will, that we hope others will approve of, right? And one of the keys about belonging is the ability to show up as who you are. It's about authenticity. If I create a space where you feel like you need to change who you are, be something else, try to impress others by honing to a certain model that's not really you, that's not real connection.
No.
And too many people are operating in those spaces digitally. Lastly, I should just say that one of the challenges we have right now with digital spaces is the activation energy, if you will, to engage in those spaces is really low.
Super low.
Right? I did a college campus tour some years ago that was focused on social connection. And I'll say, I did thousands and thousands of events as a Surgeon General, but there were no events that generated more engagement and demand than these college campus events. And I realized later, it was not because of me or our office. It was because the issue of loneliness and isolation was felt so profoundly among college-age students. One university we went to, Pooja, we were wrangling with them. It was a large public university, and the only time they would give us to come talk to their students was at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday.
Ooh,
now, I don't know what you were doing in college at
students.
4:30 p.m. on a Friday, but you probably weren't going to listen to some government official in a uniform talk. But when we got there, and I was like, there was an auditorium for 600 people. I was like, if it's a third full, I'd be impressed, at this point. When we got there, though, there was a line that was like winding its way like around the building. I was like, what are these guys waiting for? Is there like a game going on today? They're like, no, they're here for the event, silly. I was like, oh my goodness. And we saw that everywhere we went because this issue is felt so deeply among young people. But what is encouraging to me is that on college campus, we're seeing more efforts from students to actually re-engineer their relationship with technology. There's a whole movement called the log-off movement, which Emma Lemke and a few others started, and you're familiar with it, where students are helping students to actually not just take breaks, but go on social media diets to redefine their relationship with the platforms. And I've talked to many of these students, you know what they all say to a T? One is none of them ever regret taking the break.
Yeah.
Many who didn't take the break regret not taking it. But when I asked them, what was different when you took a break from social media, they said, well, you know, it was interesting. In the beginning, I felt jittery because the way they're designed is honestly to be addictive, you know, and that's how many people experience them. But like after a few days, I just realized that even though I knew less of what was going on in every corner of campus, I felt better about the people I was hanging out with. I felt like I could be myself. I could live life on my own terms. The circle of people I interacted with was smaller, but they were deeper and better interactions. And I kind of like that. And that is what we have to reclaim, right? And I think it's especially important now in an age of AI, where we're seeing if social media is sort of focused on creating this sense of connection, right, or presumed connection, what AI is doing is creating a sense of intimacy, right, which is not always real. Yeah. Because it's imagined, right? But we've got 75% of adolescents now using AI chatbots. A significant number of them say that they actually feel close to the chatbot and would actually prefer to be in a relationship with AI rather than a human being because it's easier, right? Doesn't push back against you, doesn't make things uncomfortable. But, you know, friends push back on you sometimes because that's what we need.
That's what we need.
Right? We grow because in part of a little friction in a relationship. A lot of love and a little friction is a great recipe for growth, right? But AI gives you, you know, artificial love with none of the friction.
Yeah.
And that's a recipe for decline, right? So, but 1 in 8 adolescents right now who are using AI chatbots say they're doing so because they have no one else to talk to. Right? And that's a deeply saddening thing. So if we are not intentional about our efforts to build community, to drive conversations about community, to help people see that community is not just a nice thing we do after we've done the important stuff. It is the important stuff to do that allows us to build a platform on which we can do everything else. That is what we need to prioritize. And if we do so, my hope is that we can start to not only help people feel more a sense of belonging, but help millions and billions of people who are struggling with a sense of isolation and loneliness feel a sense of hope as they see communities come together and society shift its focus from purely what benefits the individual to what ultimately helps the collective.
I love what you said about, you know, a foundational element of community being authenticity, the ability to show up how you are, and the ability to show up how you are, which might change day to day, right? I think with social media, we've kind of been trained to put out this projection of perfection, right? Everything's fine, everything's good, everything's wonderful. But life doesn't work that way, right? And when I say, like, my community is what helped me survive after my brother passed, it was the people who chose to be there when I was really raw, when I was really vulnerable, when I was, you know, crying and in the throes of grief and hadn't showered in a questionable amount of time, right? And the people who were there to your point, push back and be like, hey, Pooja, go take a shower. I know it's hard. I know you don't want to do it. Go do that, right? The ones who kind of brought me back to who I was, even when I didn't want them to, even when I didn't necessarily ask them to, right? Community is created in inconvenience and with the trust and authenticity to say what's actually going on and allow people to show up in the way that you really need them to, right? On that note, you know, one of the things that you have really done as you have grown in your career, as you have grown in rank and in status, is you've maintained that authenticity. You've maintained that vulnerability. You've maintained that element of, you know, being honest about what is happening in your life. How do you square that with kind of this perception that especially people in positions of power shouldn't be doing that, shouldn't be sharing that aspect of themselves? And what has that experience been like as you continue to do that in your current moment?
Well, first, I just want to say, I think what you have done after the loss of your brother is just so admirable. The fact that you've turned the pain that you experienced into a passion for helping others, for supporting others. And I
How come there's not tissues up here?
Well, I can't imagine that it has been easy in any shape or form, but I just want to just applaud you for that, and your family as well. You know,
Oh my God. Oh my God.
and I think one of the things that I like about your story, and I really appreciate about it, is that you were able to open yourself up to others coming in to support you during one of your darkest times. And that's really hard. Like, just out of curiosity, how many people here have gone through a hard time in your life at some point, but found it hard to let people in? It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy at all. I mean, like, when you're at your most vulnerable, for people to see you in your pain, it's hard, but it's also one of the most deeply human things we can do. It's when you strip away all of the veneers and expectations and masks that we all wear, and you just see people in their raw form. And that's not just good for you, it's good for the people who are showing up. You know, recently my family has gone through a lot of health challenges. We had this terrible 3-week stretch at the end of last year where my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, my mother was diagnosed with endometrial cancer, my grandmother died, and my father-in-law ended up in the ICU with a life-threatening bloodstream infection. And all of this is happening, and you know, in moments like that, it doesn't matter how much medical training you have. It doesn't matter what post you served in government. Like, none of that matters. Right? All that matters is you've got people you love who you're worried you're going to lose. And everything else falls away. And I was like struggling to process all of that. I wasn't processing it. I was just in like execute mode, trying to find the right doctors, trying to get the right treatment, go through all the uncertainties, and there were some twists and turns in my wife's case in particular. But in that moment, I think about what helped. And what helped were these friends who showed up in quiet but extraordinarily powerful ways. My friend Mehta, who texted me and said, I'm in India right now, I'm going to several temples, and I'm going to be doing a puja in your family's name, and I'll bring back the prasad for you. And you don't need to even reply to this, but just know that wherever we are, that we are thinking of you and praying for you. I think my friend Dave Chokshi, who came from New York City with his wife and his 2 small kids, and drove all the way down to DC to spend 3 days with us, having brought home-cooked food, you know, in the car, knowing that we would need something that was healthy. Coming in, taking care of our kids, taking them ice skating, taking them out to get hot chocolate, letting us just literally sit there and just be and have a moment of peace. I think about all these friends the friend who called me and said, you know, I'm just going to tell you 3 funny stories of something that just happened to me, because I'm guessing you really need to laugh.
Yeah.
And here's what those funny stories are. Those friends, that way of showing up, is what we all need to do for each other. It's what we were designed to do for each other. But one of my greatest worries is that we're living in a world where we do feel that we have to live up to some image that society has decided constitutes success for us. You know, one of the things I would ask students everywhere I traveled, high school and college students, was I would ask them, how do you define success? What I was really asking them is, how does society define success for you? And with a remarkable level of consistency, whether I was talking to students in Lincoln, Nebraska, or Los Angeles, California, or Bangalore, or Tokyo, or London, they would say the same 3 things. They would say it's money, it's power, and most of all, it's fame. Right? It's why so many students, when I ask them, what are you doing right now in your life? What are you working on? They would say, I'm working on building my brand. I mean, a small part of me died each time they said that. But the point is, I don't blame those students per se, because what they're reflecting is what society around them is telling them what's important, right? But here's the thing, we know that what's really important in life is not that triad of success, but it's a very different triad.
Yeah.
It's a triad of fulfillment, which is grounded fundamentally in our relationships, in service, and in purpose, right? Our relationships, true, genuine, authentic connections with others. Our service, these are the small or big acts that we do where we help each other. And purpose that's grounded in lifting each other up. Right? Whenever all of these three things, relationships, purpose, and service, make us feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. That is the key. And so much of the world is telling us to focus more and more on just ourselves, on our brand, how we come across, etc. Whereas it's often in connecting with something bigger than ourselves that we feel a real sense of hope and possibility. Did anyone here follow the Artemis 2 mission they recently launched? I mean, how incredibly inspiring. One of the things that I will always remember is something that astronaut Christina Koch said, who, by the way, had like the best reflections I found like throughout that journey.
She's a North Carolina native.
I didn't know that. But when they rounded the moon, having traveled at that point the farthest anyone had ever traveled from Earth, having seen the surface of the moon in the way that no one ever had, and when they rounded it and came around the other side and saw the beautiful blue crescent that was Earth, Christina Koch said, you know, we have been farther than anyone has ever been. Yeah. We will continue to go farther on future missions. We will land rovers on the moon. We will explore other planets. We will maybe even go to other galaxies and systems. But at the end of all of that, we will always choose Earth.
Yes.
We will always choose each other. And that is what I remember. Because at the end of our time, whenever that may be, and we never know when that is, but when we reflect on what makes life most meaningful, it won't be the triad of success.
Yeah.
How much money we had in our bank account, how many mentions we had in national newspapers, how much we were known as an influencer or not. None of that will actually matter. What will actually matter are the people that we loved, the relationships that we built. And I know this because when I think about the patients I've cared for at the end of their lives, when they reflect on what was most meaningful to them in their life, it's their relationships that rise to the top. Yeah. The people they loved, the people they wished they had spent more time with, the people who broke their heart, the people who loved them. And so if we can live our lives with that front and center, not only will that help us live better lives, more fulfilled lives, but it will encourage and inspire other people to do so. Because here's the thing that I'm finding everywhere I go, is all of us are hungry for a deeper sense of belonging and connection. Many of us want more meaning and purpose in our lives. But we're often scared to step off the train that everyone else is on, that tells them that these outward metrics matter. And so what do? We keep walking around with these masks on, right? They tell people everything is okay. They tell people that, yes, we're doing great because we're checking all these boxes. But the most important boxes to check are the ones inside that tell us, do we have a sense of real belonging? Are we serving each other? And do we have purpose that's grounded in lifting each other up? And if we can not only do that for ourselves, but model that for our kids, then we will realize what my friends told me when I had kids, which is that your kids may sometimes listen to what you say, sometimes, maybe rarely, but they will much more often listen to what you do.
Yes.
And in the same way that I find myself reflecting on the extraordinary ways in which my parents modeled community and valued family, and put love first and foremost in their lives, that's the way in which our kids will ultimately live their lives if they see us centering our days, our time, our attention, our energy on how to live with love, with purpose and with a sense of belonging.
Can we get a round of applause for that? Thank you. I think you're absolutely right? That like, that connection is something that we all want. It's something that we all crave. But I'm just, as you were saying that, I was thinking about just a couple minutes earlier with all the hands up where people, when they were going through a difficult time, didn't feel like they could open themselves up to asking for that connection and asking for that help. I remember in my thick of it, I felt like such a burden, right? I felt like such a drag on, the world was just opening up from the COVID pandemic. People wanted to celebrate, people wanted to vacation, go out, live their lives. And I'm just like, I am deeply unwell, right? I don't want to do that, but I need you here with me in my grief, in my sadness. And I had to ask for that. I had to be brave and ask for that. But it's amazing the number of people that said yes to being that for me, right? And I remember very distinctly one of my best friends, I was crying to her and telling her how I felt like such a burden. And she just stopped me and she's like, Pooja, if the roles were reversed, if I was sitting there and you were sitting here, would you think I was a burden? And I said, absolutely not. She's like, would you regret being here? And I'm like, absolutely not. Would you wish you were somewhere else? Absolutely not. Then why do you think of less of me? Why do you think that I don't love you as much as you love me? And that has stuck with me. Every single time that I hesitate to ask someone for help, I think of that example of, I almost reframe it as, am I depriving this person of an opportunity to show me how much they love me? And that has changed the game. So I encourage you, when you're asking for help, when you're asking people to show up for you, you could be asking them to, take time out of their lives and out of their busy schedules and stuff like that to prioritize you over that. Or you could be asking them to love you, to care for you, to do the things that they already want to do for you. You're giving them the opportunity to lean into that. Thank you for sharing about your family. I hope your wife is doing all right. I hope everyone is on the mend. Life is hard, and the world right now is not making it any easier. Let's call a spade, right? But life is not all hard. So I want to close out this session by asking you, what is one good thing that's happening in your life right now? What is something that is making you feel connected, something that is making you feel like you belong?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think it's really important in moments like this not to allow the darkness to overshadow the light that is there in our lives. And there is light, and it's usually not on the front page of the paper or what's algorithmically amplified on social media, but it's often there in our day-to-day life if we look closely at what's happening around us. For me, each day, my most important source of light are my kids. I wake up each day, I give them a hug, and I just see the joy and simple wonder with which they approach the world. And that reminds me that joy is there if we are willing to see it. It reminds me that sometimes it's in noticing the simple things that little kids just do naturally. It's in that simplicity that we can actually find joy that we so often overlook. But there is when I look closely, I realize when I slow down, take a deep breath, and just look around a bit, I realize just how many sources of joy they are. I mentioned Artemis 2, which was such a source of joy for us over the last few weeks. Opened our sense of what was possible up again. I think about these wonderful friends who have showed up for us, in our lives over these last few months and who continue to. And I think about even people in our lives who reach out periodically. Just 2 days ago, I got a call from an old mentor whose wife is having a difficult time with her health, and he asked me if I could help. And I just felt so grateful that he called. Yeah. Because to your point, Pooja, when we have the chance to help other people in our lives, we need that too.
Mm-hmm. He gave you the opportunity to show him you love him.
Yes, and it just, what sustains us as human beings at a spirit level is giving and receiving love. Giving and receiving, it's both, right? And so when you can help a friend, it feels good. It reminds you of the most important parts of who you are. So I have a lot of sources of joy in my life right now, even while I recognize the hardship. And I do a lot of different things right now. I'm sort of working on a book. I'm building a nonprofit to advance our work on community. But I'm also working with a couple of friends, on building up a venture fund, a small fund that will invest in entrepreneurs who are using technology to strengthen and enhance humanity, whether that's through human connection, through better health and well-being. And what I love about that work as well is I am now coming across all of these entrepreneurs who are incredibly experienced and talented, but who want to solve an important problem in the world. They're sources of light. They're approaching their work with hope and with a sense of possibility. And I love that. And so I do count myself lucky in that regard to have a lot of joy and see a lot of joy. But lastly, thinking about impact and the work that you are doing, like in the world, and how you're helping create a greater sense of community, build support for people who are running for public office. That work in and of itself is so important. And I hope that you will continue to do that. But how you do that matters too. And when you encourage and support leaders who are running with their values front and center, who are running with authenticity, even though sometimes that's hard and not easy, that's how you can help be a force, not only for getting folks represented in office, but for having the right values represented in office as well. Because this is something that we have to be careful about, is sometimes all of us in society, we can rationalize our path to positions of power and influence and slowly give away the core values that are important bit by bit in an effort to get to a position that we think matters. And that, having worked in DC for many years, I've seen that happen time and time and time again. But I think there is such a hunger out there now for authenticity, for people who are real, who will not only tell you what their values are, but will actually live up to those values. There's a hunger for people who will not just tell you about themselves, but will actually stop and listen to what you have to say, and then may actually change their mind based on what they heard. Right? That is not weakness. That is actually maturity. Right? Give me somebody who has a belief and never changes it for decades and decades for their whole life, that worries me deeply. Because that person is not growing. They're not listening, usually. So as you continue to do the incredible work that you're doing, as you continue to lead, I think putting a focus on this question of values. What are the values that we want to see in our candidates, that we want our candidates to reflect in the world? What are the values that we ourselves, as organizers, want to reflect for our broader community? That is important. Because my worry is right now, people feel the values are secondary. It's achieving the ends that matter. And whatever path allows you to achieve those ends, it's justified. Right? And we see too many examples of that around us. But we can be a counterexample to that. An example that shows that the values of love and kindness and compassion, that these are not weakness, this is strength. This is our greatest source of strength. In the way that no one would say that a mother who puts her way in harm's way to protect her child, or a father who does the same, that's weakness. That's the power that love gives us. No one would say that the soldier who puts himself in harm's way to protect his fellow soldiers around him, that is weakness. Now that comes from strength, because it's a love for your fellow soldiers, right? So we know that love, compassion, and kindness are in short supply, but they are what we are designed to experience and to share with one another. And it is now what we are called to lead with, openly, vocally, unapologetically. And when we demonstrate those values in our own lives, not only do we inspire people around us, but there's actually a cascading effect that this has. Like when we treat people with kindness and compassion, when we live our lives out of love, then not only do we build stronger friendships, but we're more likely to stand up for somebody who's struggling, even if their situation is different from ours. We're more likely to go to a city council meeting when childcare is being described and discussed, even if we don't have kids, because we know our neighbor does and we care about them. We're more likely to push for policies that benefit people more broadly, because we realize that compassion across the society is the only way that we get through and that we survive, we're more likely to go to the ballot box and vote for a leader who reflects our core values, not just in name, but in practice. Because we know that 95% of the decisions that a leader makes are often behind closed doors. And the only thing guiding them in those moments are their values. Right? So this is what can happen when we decide to stand up for those core values that make us human, to live by them, to celebrate them in others, and to lead with them. And that, in this moment of challenge and darkness, when there's a lot happening around us that can sometimes steal away our spirit and make us feel like we're in despair, that is what we're called to do. That is going to be our source of joy. And so I'm just grateful for all of you, for this chance to be with you, for the work that you all do. I know many of you have been doing this for a decade, in many cases more, in the planning of it. And having started organizations myself, on shoestring budgets, nonprofit organizations, and tried to make them run, and try to get people to listen and believe that they matter when a lot else is going on, I know that is not easy work. It is not easy work. But the world needs organizations now that are lit by those core values of love and compassion and kindness, and sees them as a source of strength and courage. And so I'm grateful for what you've done. I'm grateful for all that you will do. And most importantly, I'm grateful for the community that you have built, because that ultimately is what's going to sustain us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those core values, kindness, compassion, love, they're renewable resources, right? There's something that you can put out into the world, and it doesn't lessen how much you get. And if anything, it amplifies. Joy is the same way, right? You share your joy with other people, and it actually makes you feel even happier and even more joyful. And so with that, I want to call you all in to share your joy with each other. On your table, you'll see sticky notes, and I invite you to just take a minute, and the same question that I asked you, Dr. Murthy, I'm going to ask all of you. What is one thing in your life that is bringing you joy right now? One thing that is making you feel connected, one thing that is making you feel like you belong. Write them on your sticky notes, and we have these boards by the door. I want you to put them on the board. They can be anonymous, but it's important for us to remember that joy exists, love exists, kindness exists, and it's ours for the taking, for the sharing, and for the growing. Dr. Murthy, thank you so much for everything that you have done. Thank you so much for everything that you will do. And thank you so much for the conversation today. It is an honor to get to chat with you, to learn from you, and to share space with you. And we're so excited to see what you do going forward. All right, and now, hold on, we're not done yet. We talked so much about the importance of community, of connection, of belonging. And I now want to invite up two amazing organizations that have really pioneered this work. So South Asian Americans for Change is an organization focused on South Asian mental health in Philadelphia. And Brown Man Therapy is focused on South Asian men's mental health in Chicago. I would like to invite Ankar Verma and Nidhi Allure from the respective organizations to lead us in an exercise of how we can really put those values of care and compassion and kindness into practice in this room and going forward.
All right, thank you. Can we give one more big round of applause to Dr. Murthy and to Pooja, both for their sharing and their vulnerability today. All right, hey Nidhi, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Going through the motions, you know?
Cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Same. Well,
Yeah.
it's
Weather's
nice seeing you here.
Yeah. Weather's crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's so cold now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I gotta go to my next thing, but nice talking to you.
All right. See ya. How do we do? Is this the connection that Dr. Murthy was talking about? Thumbs up, thumbs
Sure?
down?
A little bit?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, this is why we're here. We're going to get into a little bit of an exercise here in a second, but we wanted to also share a little bit about why we're here, both of us individually, and why we do the work that we do with our respective organizations. Tell us about SAFC.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Nidhi. I'm a volunteer with SAFC, South Asian Americans for Change. And the work that we do is to break the stigma around mental health in our community. And the reason that I'm here today is to learn more about how we can show up for community in a meaningful way, very similar to what Pooja and Dr. Vivek Murthy were talking about. And Ankur, why are you here today?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed therapist, and I have a group practice, Think Good Therapy. I'm based out of Chicago. But I also co-founded with my wife an organization called Brown Man Therapy, where we focus on fostering and creating space for dialogue, education, and connection for South Asian men to address some of the things that Dr. Murthy and Pooja talked about today directly. And that's really why we're here too, because we wanted to, this is an opportunity. I think there are people in this room that I have not seen since September, and that was my first Impact Summit. I imagine there are people here who you only see at the Impact Summit, and you have this small window, I think, sometimes to connect in more meaningful ways, hopefully more meaningful and deeper than how Nidhi and I connected at the top.
Yeah, and so Dr. Murthy had talked a little bit about how loneliness is an epidemic and that community is definitely a public health concern, and how the lack of connection that people experience is as disastrous to our health as something like smoking can be. And so one of the things that I think we've noticed in our work and through SAFC and through Brown Man Therapy is that while connection is so important to have, it can be hard sometimes to know, how do you build a meaningful connection with someone, right? Like that conversation that we have, how many times have you maybe experienced something like that, where you've had a surface level conversation, you're just like, yeah, I'm doing okay, see ya, talk to you later. Show of hands, how many times has that happened to you all? All of us, right? We've all had that. And so what we're doing here today is that we're hoping to kind of explore a little bit more about how do you dig a little bit deeper with someone, even if it's someone that you've never met, especially in a space like this where we're all passionate about the work that we're doing. We're all here for a reason. We want to champion this idea of that we all belong. And so how do we actually show up for one another in a way that feels authentic? And is able to give that care and also receive the care that we want to see.
Yeah, and I think, these are the kind of the windows, and when I'm working, with my clients, this is what I'm thinking about too, is where are these windows of opportunity, right, for us to do something a little bit differently. And so, I know I go to conferences and workshops and things, and, it's a lot of small talk. It's a lot of, hey, hi, how are you? But these are the moments too where, you have an opportunity, even if the person you're talking to is new, somebody you don't know anything about, you have a chance to leave a mark and leave that connection, which opens a window for that person and for yourself, as well as if you're just seeing people who you haven't seen in a year, a couple years, this is an opportunity for you to connect about things that you can then reconnect about. I find myself doing that the older I get. I'm a newer parent. I have less and less time for those same social connections that I used to have as a single guy in my 20s and 30s. And so, I think that is what to me is so important about this is, using these opportunities that we get to build that connection, to build the community, and how that works its way kind of up the ladder to building better communities and societies overall.
Yeah, and as Pooja had mentioned earlier, community is an investment, right? And so sure. I think this is a good time to maybe try again with our interaction.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
Do that rewind?
Yeah, do a little bit of a rewind.
Hey, Nidhi, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
It's pretty good. Going through the motions.
Okay. Tell me more. Tell me more about what's happening.
Just every day is different. I have a young daughter at home, so it's just been, lack of sleep, running my own business. So it's just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of things happening at once. What are some ways that I can show up for you? I can, be a listening ear, hear more about what's happening.
Do you want to babysit from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
So I might not be the best person for that, but I do have some people that I know that I think could be a great fit. Can I send you some names and numbers of people that could be there for you?
That's great. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, and if there's any other way that I can be of support, let me know. I know that takes a village to raise a kid, so
yeah,
let me know.
And I'd love to actually ask you too about some of the parenting techniques that you use for sleep and stuff with your kid.
Yeah, could definitely
Let's
share
talk about that later.
Yeah. So what did y'all think of that? Yeah? And also, we can kind of go around the room and also ask for people's thoughts too.
Yeah, so we want you to share. I don't know, do we have any mics or no?
You have a couple?
So if you wanted to share your thoughts, anything that you do to connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll go around the room and give some mics to people. Who wants to share their thoughts? Don't all go at once. Oh. Got one over here.
I think when I'm trying to connect with people and just like listen, I think what helps me is looking for a place where I can like demonstrate just interest. Like if it's like, oh, like having a new daughter, like, oh, what's the favorite part about that? Or like something that gets people to feel like I'm invested in what brings them a sense of like joy or like a sense of importance, like what they want to prioritize and how I can like help support them in that. So that's what I try to do to listen.
Yeah, I love that. So like, if just in case you didn't hear, like asking questions kind of lean more into those topics, show that you're invested in the conversation that the person's talking about. Love that. One or two other thoughts here.
I have one here. I found that actually, like many interactions end up being kind of passing interactions, right? You're busy, you're walking towards something, you're moving around. I find recently I've been making an effort, especially with the ones closest to me, to take advantage of captive time. So time when people are like driving or things like that, where like my brother sits in a car and drives 30 minutes from work to home. Before he listens to his audiobooks, whatever. Now we take two or three times a week, we take that 30 minutes. And when it's 30 minutes, you have to start digging a little deeper and asking more limited questions. Because if you're talking 3 times a week, you can't just say, what do you do, how'd you do every day? So I find that time has been really valuable to just actually set aside the time to ask deeper questions as opposed to just the 5-minute check-in or the 2-minute check-in when you see each other or when you're just called to quickly check up on something.
I love that. That's, it's again like setting aside that intentional time to be able to connect with someone. My friend ended up doing like a monthly phone call with me just to have that set aside time instead of just like 2 minutes here or there, and it goes a long way to have that. Awesome. One more? Okay, Squint.
Yeah, this is kind of tying back to the previous conversation as well, but kind of having to do with the burden of being able to open up like you kind of demonstrated in the first version of your talk there. I had someone in college one time ask me about a situation, really pry me open and make me spill. And once I finally did, he said, "Thank you for sharing that with me. And I want you to know I'm here for you. And this is what I can do for you," like you just demonstrated in the second session there. And that's something that I've started to do as well, is to say, when I finally can get someone to open up, whether it's a friend, family, acquaintance, stranger, thank you for sharing, because I think that really helps ease that burden that someone might feel that they're being when they're going through something. And I found that has helped me and also others, like my friends, feel like that they can open up more with me. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the thank you for sharing piece that you just put at the end. It's interesting because I never thought that like thank you was such an effective communication tool, right? That you just acknowledge that somebody has shared something maybe not so easy or just personal, right? And it doesn't have to be, that you are always ready, like connecting back to what you said, right? Like always ready to have the perfect solution or tool or whatever it is, but that, hey, we can at least maybe make time later. Let's talk about this. So you can set the intention of making that space for that dialogue. And it doesn't always have to be like, this is the hard stuff in my life right now. Like, here's all my problems. Do you have any solutions, right? It can be a mix, and it doesn't, you don't have to know what to do about my daughter in the middle of the night to be able to be supportive.
Right. Showing up can be messy, and I think that's often what makes us feel a little bit scared to try to show up more authentically for others, is that we're afraid to get it wrong. And so being able to still show up and be like, hey, I might not get this right, but I do know that I want to be there for you. And so how can I be there for you? Like, what are ways that I can do this in a way that is most effective and most valuable for you goes a long way, instead of just not even trying because we're afraid. And so with that,
Yeah.
I think it would be really great if everyone here could maybe turn to each other, the person next to you, whether you know them or not, and do a little exercise with us.
Yeah, so introduce yourself if you don't know each other, and just kind of connect in whatever way feels natural. And a couple ideas here are to share kind of what Pooja had asked Dr. Murthy at the end in terms of what's bringing you joy, what's bringing you optimism right now. Any other suggestions here?
Yeah, Ankur, I know that you mentioned something to me earlier about what is one thing that you want to learn about someone that's here today, and what is one thing that you hope to share or challenge yourself to share today in this space? Or even asking, like, what brought them here today? We're all here for a reason, and so finding a reason to connect with each other is always a great topic of discussion.
Yeah, so with that, turn to the person next to you, practice this. And I want to add something to this. When you see this person again today at lunch or at a breakout or at a talk or on Hill Day tomorrow, follow up with them about this if you do run back into each other. So take a couple minutes here to turn to your neighbor and connect. Picture for that.
So we're asking people to talk to each other and try to like
Okay, good.
absolutely like I was cheering watching that. It was such a
I was like trying to strike the balance between like I don't want to make it about me, but it's relevant, right?
it's so relevant. And also the way that when he was talking about how one little good thing, like if you do that, like it can like lead to a cascade of effect. That is literally the Raj Mehta technique. That is everything you can do. It's incredible. So what we're gonna do is once we kind of get people to like share with each other, we're gonna ask some people to like share their experiences, their thoughts, something that really stood out to them. And then after that, we'll find them through boards. There's sticky notes in there. This guide to and how this can be useful.
Look at that more.
I know, it's amazing.
Look at that more.
Can we give it one more minute, or
Yeah, we can give it one more minute, and then do you want to come back up on the stage, or how do you?
I think I'll let you guys lead the reflection, right? And then I'm going to close it out by saying, like, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to be continuing this healing space during our networking session. So please come check us out, come see us, and keep caring for for each other, and then I'll hand it off to someone at the impact team.
So I think you go want to start rapping, and we'll do that, and then I'll come back up. We're gonna end with a dance performance before we take a break, and then Representative Rokun is also almost here, so there's gonna be a lot of people trying to get.
What time do you want, Pooja, or what time do you want to be on this?
How long is your?
We can as quick as possible.
Okay, how long is your piece?
Like maybe 2 minutes.
Okay, so I think if you can hand it up to me by 10:23, 24, so 5-6 minutes.
We'll wrap now.
Okay.
And then All right, we love that you guys are deep in conversation. Please find a couple more seconds to wrap up where you're at, and we'll start to move on.
Yeah, we will also want to invite some people to share their reflections, something that stood out from the person that they talked to, and maybe something that stood out for them while they were sharing. And so, yeah.
All right, so if we could have your attention back again as we move on with this program. Really quickly, so one or two people, if you could, one thing I noticed, I saw some people hugging, very enthusiastic conversation almost immediately. So I know that you guys are all really eager to get into the rest of the summit, into the rest of the today. Anybody want to share something, their experience or what they noticed in their brief conversation?
And if you'd like to share, feel free to raise your hand. We have mics.
Do you want to share what you learned about each other? Sagar, you want to share what you learned about your friend?
What is that?
If you can hear my voice, clap 1 time. If you can hear my voice, clap 2 times. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. Thank you, Ankur and Nidhi, for leading us in this conversation. It's very clear that you guys are really into it, and I love it. We do have to wrap up in just a minute, so I'm going to hand it back to them to close us out.
Do we have any volunteers to share their reflections from their conversation? You can raise your hand.
Or just call it out.
Or what you learned about the person that you talked to?
Oh,
Our group talked about how we should let go when there's a problem or something that's happened and you're just really upset about it. Process it and let it go and don't perseverate. And then the other big thing we as a group talked about is humor, and how humor can help you when you realize, both of us are in politics, when you realize there are a certain percentage of people that hate you no matter what, you can deflect it through humor.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that. Humor and then processing and being able to let it go. Love that. You guys got pretty deep pretty quickly there, so
That's
love
awesome.
That. All right. One more?
We just learned that we were in the same industry in international development, which has gone through some changes. And I lost my job over the summer and started a new business, and I'm here because of that. So it's just exciting to see spaces like this exist, and there's always kind of a silver lining to tough times and the changes in our political climate.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Love the sense of connection that you're able to get with each other. That's so cool.
All right, so with that, the last note that we're gonna make is, please, if you haven't had a chance, put your Post-it notes on the boards. We've got a couple interactive boards for you to add your responses to throughout the room here. And then you can also find us, the Community Care Lounge, at the tables here during the lunch breakout session. And then you're gonna close this out.
And we also have, I don't know if everyone's seen this, we have some handouts on each table. You'll see on one side there's a supportive response decision tree. And so on the bottom half of that tree, it kind of shows a little bit more of how to kind of dig a little bit deeper when talking to others. And so if you're talking to someone, you're noticing that maybe they're having a hard time, and it can be really hard sometimes in the moment to think of how to show up for them authentically. This could be a really great way to interact with them and to be able to just kind of dig a little deeper and show up in a meaningful way. And then on the other side, we also have supporting text, and so they have some helpful language you can use, so like starting points you can use. We also have reflection questions for your own self-care, because that is also important when connecting with others. We also have some QR codes on the bottom, and so one of the things you might notice on this response tree and with the text is being able to provide resources for others, such as finding a therapist. And so some of these QR codes have different guides for how to find a therapist or finding support groups around you. And yeah.
Yeah, and please take a look at the guides, take them with you. This is science, right? That we don't always learn how to support people. We can have these conversations. You are all good communicators because you are in some adjacent field that is related to people, right? But we don't always get the tools. I had to go to grad school to become a therapist to learn some healthy communication techniques for supporting people in my life. I should not have to pay for a grad school education to do that. So please take advantage of the information that's here and that's out there. There's no shame in kind of building and learning some of these tools so we can be better humans, communicators, parents, fathers, brothers, sisters, children. So thank you so much.
And with that, we'll give it to Pooja.
Thank you both so much. Could we get a big round of applause for Ankur, Nidhi, and for Neeta and Keshav, who also put so much work into making this happen? Thank you all so much for joining us today. Please make sure to put your sticky note on one of the signs in the back, and please come see us during the networking sessions. We're going to be continuing these conversations in smaller breakout groups, and we would love to just continue to connect and share and be emotional and vulnerable with you all. It is so fundamental to the work that we are all here to do today, and just so honored and so grateful to be in conversation and to be in community with you all. And I'm going to hand it off to Sarah now.
Thank you all so much. What an incredible way to start the morning. As Dr. Murthy and Pooja shared, community is the pillar upon which we do everything else, and that is a core value for impact. So thank you for building community with us. We are going to take, in a few minutes, a short break before our next session that will start at 10:45 with Representative Rokunda. So please be back in your seats by 10:45. But before that, I'm really excited to invite up, y'all have been doing a lot of sitting, so we're gonna do a really fun interactive Bollywood dance demo by this award-winning group local to the area, Dunya, who's going to get us moving. So please welcome Dunya.
Testing. Testing. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. All right, so this is going to be an interactive segment, so please get up, come on, don't be shy, join us. I know a lot of you are on your college dance teams. Come on up, get up. Just don't stand up. Welcome. All right, thank you for joining us.
It should be working.
Oh, yeah. Welcome. All right, thank you. My name is Jeannie. This is Ratna. We are Dunya instructors here. We have, so we teach a Bollywood dance workout class in and around DC. Come see us. And so we have some promotions and stuff that Ratna can share with you later. So normally we do kind of a workout. We do some burpees, all that stuff. We're not doing any of that today. We're just going to dance, have a good time. So we're going to do one song. I'm going to show you some things. We're going to jump left, tap right, jump right, tap left. So jump, tap, jump, tap, jump, tap, jump, tap. We're also going to do a reverse kick. We can bring your leg up here, down here. It's fine. You're just going to start with a straight leg, bring it in, and then we're going to say, in the song they say, hey, hey, hey. So the most important part, whether you're sitting or standing, I need to hear everyone say, hey, 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 during that part. Otherwise, just have fun with it. Can we go ahead and play the first song? So, all right. Can we turn it up a little? So we're going to take it, scoot, 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 lift, lift, scoot, scoot, scoot. So we're taking it down, and then up. But we're going to start with that tap. So tap, good. Tap, tap. So the hands are going to go right, left, around, clap.
Let's go. Take it right. संग यारा अख लड़ने लगी अख लड़ लड़ के आगे बढ़ने लगी
Got it. Make some noise. You got it down. Let's go.
तेरे संग यारा अख लड़ने लगी अख लड़ लड़ के आगे
Very nice.
ओ तेरे दिल के इशारे ये तो पढ़ने लगी
All right, reverse kick right here. Bring it up. What? Hey, 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 I can't hear you. What? Hey, hey, hey. One more time. Hey, hey, hey. Last time. Hey, hey, hey. All right, so we're going to take it as a chord. We're going to go kick, kick, up, up. So kick, kick, lift, lift. But first, get up. All right, kick it. Reach up. Yeah, come on. Woo! Chest crouch. Up. Last time. Up. Other side. Get low. Let's go, let's go. Yes. Woo! More. Last one.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
मुझे लगता खरा मुझे लगता बुरा सौदा इश्क दा जो है तेरा आ
You got it.
and this तू ना हो पर हाथ let me go spoil
All right,
करना
everyone
तू
get ready to
मूड
strike a
मेरा
pose. Pose, anything you want. Bring it in.
ओ दिल
Kick.
को तूने छुआ
What? Hey, 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 I can't hear you. What?
हुआ
Hey, hey, hey.
ओ दिल को तूने छुआ
What?
जब
Hey,
सैंती
hey,
हुआ
hey.
मेरे नाल कर ले जरा
Gibson girls, they talk about the heart.
दिल देना दिल लेना दिल देना दिल लेना है सौदा है सौदा है
Kick it.
सौदा
Reach up.
है सौदा
Woo! Yeah.
है सौदा
Last one. Nice job.
Nice. All right, y'all. Let's do a volley pop, Bollywood number here. We're gonna do those glute lifts that you saw earlier with the roll. You also see some body rolls and some crunches. So I want you to engage that core as we crunch side to side. Y'all ready? Are we ready? Let's do this, y'all. All right, we can start it up.
iPad, it's right there. But hold on, this is Dilly Wally Girlfriend. It should be right on the iPad. It's the second song on the, it's the second, no, it's Dilly Wally Girlfriend. It's on the iPad though. Yeah.
Yes.
It should be on the iPad.
It's okay.
Sorry, just stay there. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. Wait, hold on. It's the second song. Yeah, thank you.
Woo! All right, y'all, we're gonna do a roll, crunch, roll, crunch it up. All right, y'all, come on, we got this. We got another Bollywood song, y'all can do it. I know we're trying not to get too sweaty here, so we're just gonna keep it nice and slow with the crunch. Body roll, crunch. Yes, nice. Glute lifts to the right. Lean it forward and glute lift. Roll at the center.
तेरी गली में भी आके स्टार्ट कर दिया तेरे नाम अपना हार्ट कर दिया कहने लगा आँख मटका तो आज बन गया पक्का
Last one. Alright, volley top. This time, let's make a full circle turn and play. Dance it out, shake it out. Other side. Alright, run.
बोल मार के
Calm down, get ready. Big Alex, down. Up, crisscross, crisscross. Point, point, shake it up. Again. Up. Nice. Glute lift. Two more. And roll it. Nice. Last one. Body roll and crunch. Almost there. Two more. Alright, he's gonna say.
Okay, bye.
Nice. Woo.
Do we have time or should we?
We're good.
All right, go ahead and play it. You can play it, just play it. Go ahead, play it. All right, just one more song. You got it.
Last one.
Come on. Woo! All right, last one. All right, so we're gonna start with some lunges. We're gonna bring it in, nice and easy. Bring it in.
ਤੈਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਲਵ ਕਰਦਾ
Hold it here. We're gonna pulse. We have 4,
ਬੇਮਤਲਬ
3,
ਕਰਦਾ
2. Other side. Bring it in.
ਬਾਹੋਂ में आ सोनिए
In. Pulse.
बस आज रात के लिए
Double time. Take it in.
साਡੀ ਤਾਂ ਬਸੀ ਹੈ ਅਦਾ
Left.
ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਫਿਦਾ
One more set each side.
ਬਾਹੋਂ में आ सोनिए बस आज रात के लिए
All right, pick up step, right leg. Alright, let me see that Bollywood hero thing. Shake it back. Left side.
सुबह होने ना दे साथ होने ना दे एक दूसरे को हम सोने ना दे मैं तेरा हीरो हाँ हीरो
Take it back.
हाँ हीरो
We're gonna punch it out.
मैं तेरा
Left,
हीरो
single, double. So right, 2. Left. What? Woo! Come on. Nice. You're almost there. Uppercut. Let's go. Oh. Don't forget to breathe. Exhale on the jab. Oh. Woo. Last set each side. Lunge that right leg and bring it in.
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੂੰ ਹੌਟ ਲੱਗਦੀ
Make it rain.
ਲੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਨੋਟ ਲੱਗਦੀ
All right, you got this.
ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਾ
All right, if you can. I know a lot of us are wearing business suits. Maybe you squat just a little bit deeper. Yes. Up.
ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤੂੰ ਟੱਚ ਕਰ ਲੈ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਤੂੰ ਮੱਜ ਕਰ ਲੈ
One more set.
ਬਾਹੋਂ में आ सोनिए
Last one.
बस आज रात के लिए सुबह होने ना दे साथ सोने ना दे एक दूसरे को हम सोने ना दे
All right, everyone, I need you to do your best Bollywood hero pose. What do you got? Yes, give yourselves a hand. You guys are great. Thank you so much. I'm Jeannie. This is Rakna. We are Dunya, the Bollywood workout. Come find us if you're interested in classes. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much. Woo.
Hello. All right, thank you so much, Dunya. Okay, those of you not already on a break, we've got 5 minutes before we start our next session. So see you back in your seats by 10:45 sharp.